and is ready for an informative and scientific discussion. Now it must be presented of today President Dr. Riyakar Khadir, PG resident, Department of Forest Medicine and Radiology, who will be sharing on the topic pleasure management of gingival mass exploring the advantage of pleasure accidents.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's TCR. The topic of today's TCR is laser management of a gingival mass, exploring the advantages of laser excision. Moving on to the chief complaint of the patient, a 39-year-old female patient reported to the Department of Oral Medicine and Radiology the chief complaint of swelling on lower left anterior gum region since 2 months. Moving on to history of present illness, local factors. Patient was apparently asymptomatic 2 months back when she noticed a small swelling in the gingival region of the lower left mandibular anterior region. The swelling was insidious in onset and gradually increased in size to attain the present dimensions. The swelling has been painless throughout its course. History of bleeding on brushing and on slight provocation from the lesion. No history of pus discharge from the affected site. Swelling occasionally causes mild discomfort during brushing. No difficulty in speech or deglutition. No history of pain, food lodgement, ulceration, or pus discharge in relation to the teeth in the concerned region. No history of trauma, decay, mobility, lowering of gums. Since it was not affecting mastication, the patient did not report earlier and presented today due to aesthetic concerns. No history of reduced mouth opening, tightness in the cheek and burning sensation. There is positive history of previous dental consultations where only antibiotics were prescribed, no treatment or any radiograph was taken. There was no history of dry mouth, no history of sharp, fractured teeth, ill-fitting restorations, or faulty prosthesis in relation to the lesion. No history of recent dental treatment in the concerned area. Habitually retains the tooth putva in the mandibular anterior region. No history of displacement or gapping of teeth in cheek complaint region. Patient gives history of deposits on teeth and reports no previous oral prophylaxis done. Positive habit history of tobacco chewing in the commercially available form Vimal 3 to 4 packets per day for the past 5 years. Moving on to the systemic factors, no history suggestive of hormonal imbalance, no pregnancy or recent childbirth or irregular menstrual cycle, no history of systemic diseases such as diabetes mellitus, hypertension or bleeding disorders. There is no history of long-term medication use such as anticonvulsants, example phenytoin, carbamazepine, immunosuppressants, example cyclosporin. No history of similar lesions elsewhere in the oral cavity or on the skin. No family history of similar oral lesions. No history of fever, weight loss, fatigue or other constitutional symptoms. No history of recurrent cough. The patient reports taking a balanced mixed diet with no history suggestive of nutritional deficiency. There was no significant past medical, dental or family history. Patient brushes once daily with toothbrush and toothpaste in horizontal strokes and is a vegetarian by diet. Thus, to summarize the case so far, it is a painless swelling in mandibular anterior gingiva for the past 2 months, which has an insidious onset, gradually progressive in nature, bleeding on brushing and slight provocation, occasional mild discomfort during brushing, no pain, pus discharge, ulceration or difficulty in speech or swallowing, reported mainly due to aesthetic concerns, deposits on teeth, no previous oral prophylaxis, no contributory, no systemic illness, hormonal imbalance, long-term medication or family history of similar lesions. Moving on to general physical examination, the patient was well-built, well-nourished, gait was normal, height 158 cm, weight 63 kg, body type ectomorphic, no pallor or icterus or cyanosis noted. Examination of the eyes, nails, sclera, conjunctiva and skin revealed no abnormalities. Moving on to external examination, facial symmetry was maintained with no visible facial swelling or asymmetry. Skin over the face appeared normal with no scars, sinus openings or discoloration. Temporomandibular joint movements were normal. No regional lymph nodes were palpable. Small, light brown macules, 1 to 2 mm in size, called freckles, can be observed due to chronic sun exposure. Moving on to the intraoral examination, inspection, lips were competent. The vermilion border, labial mucosa, labial vestibule and buccal mucosa showed no abnormalities. A solitary, well-defined, dome-shaped growth measuring approximately 2 into 2 centimeters was present at the junction of labial and buccal vestibule in relation to distal of 3-2 till medial half of 3-5. It appeared reddish pink with a smooth, shiny surface. Surrounding mucosa was normal with no discharge or surface ulceration, no involvement of lingual vestibule originating from the interdental papilla. Generalized supra and subgingival calculus was present. In palpation, the growth was soft to firm in consistency. It was non-tender on palpation. The lesion was pedunculated, which was confirmed by gently passing the blunt end of a probe around the base of the lesion, allowing elevation of the margins and enabling the stalk to be fed. Surface and palpation was smooth. The growth was not fixed to the underlying structures. No local rise in temperature was noted. Bleeding was elicited on slight manipulation. Surrounding tissues were soft and non-tender. On pulp vitality test, positive response was there in relation to 3-2, 3-3 and 3-4, which indicates vital pulp. Generalized mild periodontal pocket was present. Other findings, generalized moderate supra and subgingival calculus present. Generalized moderate adhesion, chronic generalized periodontitis associated with trauma from occlusion, anterior teeth bite, crowding in lower anteriors, no expansion felt on buccal, lingual, cortical plate, and there was raised interdental papilla. Thus, to summarize the case so far, a 39-year-old female presented with a chief complaint of a painless swelling in the mandibular anterior region for the past 2 months. The swelling was insidious in onset, gradually progressive, and associated with bleeding during tooth brushing and on slight provocation. External examination revealed facial symmetry with no regional lymphadenopathy. Intraoral examination revealed a solitary, well-defined dome shape, reddish pink growth measuring approximately 2 into 2 centimeters in the buccal vestibule in relation to teeth distal of 3-2 till medial half of 3-5. The overlying reticulum appeared edematous and soft due to enlarged underlying connective tissue. Supragingival calculus deposits were noted in relation to 3-3 and 3-4 along with raised interdental papilla and bleeding on protein in the same region. A slight spacing between teeth 3-3 and 3-4 was also observed. On palpation, the lesion was soft to firm in consistency, non-tender, pedunculated and non-fixed to the underlying structures and bled on slight manipulation. The stalk of the lesion can be felt on gentle probing around its base. No expansion of the buccal or lingual cortical plates was detected. Thus, on the basis of history and clinical examination, what could be the provisional diagnosis?
Anyone from?
The provisional diagnosis will be inflammatory hyperplasia. It can be either pyogenic granuloma, maturing pyogenic granuloma, irritational fibroma, peripheral ossifying fibroma, peripheral giant cell granuloma, vascular lesions, Kaposi, sarcoma, and paralysis. Now we are going to rule them out one by one. So first, let's see towards maturing pyogenic granuloma. It was ruled out because in this lesion, it is firm, soft to firm in consistency, and it does not bleed as much as this lesion was bleeding. Second, irritation fibroma was also ruled out because it does not bleed and it is very firm in consistency. Peripheral giant cell granuloma was also ruled out because it basically occurs in children and it is limited to anterior to the first molars because of entrapment of osteoclast in that region. Because when there is resorption of deciduous tooth, the osteoclast get trapped, and during that time when there injury occurs, this lesion occurs, and it is a very nodulated lesion which causes aggressive destruction and resorption of the underlying structures. Vascular lesions were also ruled out because the our swelling was non-pulsatile and vascular lesions are pulsatile. Kaposi sarcoma was also ruled out because it is a very rare disease which occurs in immunocompromised patients. Paralysis was also ruled out because during clinical examination, when we were doing pulp vitality test, the pulse virility test was positive, thus indicating that it is not periapical pathology. Now further investigations were advised. Radiographic imaging like IOP and CBCT and normal routine examinations like CBC, fasting blood sugar, bleeding time, clotting times, pulse virility, diastrophy tests, they were done during clinical examination, and after the lesion was excised, it was sent for histopathological examination, that is biopsy. Now as we advised IUPA to see the periapical region and to appreciate the interdental bone loss. So as we can see in this radiograph that there are flecks of calculus can be appreciated on medial surface of 3-3. There is slight space between 3-3 and 3-4 and also mild to moderate interdental bone loss. Now to see whether calcification or ossification occurred or is there or any soft tissue calcification is there or expansion or resorption of buccal or lingual cortical plate was there, CBCT was advised. In CBCT also we can appreciate that there is spacing between 3-3 and 3-4, calculus flecks are seen on 3-4 and missing 3-6 and easily drifted 3-7. Thus on this basis a final diagnosis of pyogenic granuloma was made. Now after the diagnosis part, let's move towards the treatment plan. The treatment plan includes the excision of the lesion, which can either be done by laser or by conventional methods. We opted for laser excision because it is a very minimally invasive method. It provides dry surgical field and increases the visibility. There is no need of sutures. There is very limited collateral damage. There is also sterilization of the piece. Thus, no antibiotics, post-operative antibiotics need to be prescribed. It also causes coagulation or charring of the dysplastic or abnormal cells, thus reducing the reoccurrence of the lesion, and the charring or the carbonization of the cells provides a protective layer to the healing wound, thus reducing the infection. On this basis, we opted for the laser excision of the lesion. So routine pre-operative hematological investigations including CBC, bleeding time, clotting time, HCS were performed and all values were within normal limits. Informed consent was obtained and the surgical site was prepared under aseptic conditions. Local anesthesia was administered around the lesion. A diode laser with a fiber tip was used for the procedure with the laser unit initially kept in standby mode. The fiber tip was gently used to lift and retract the margins of the lesion to improve visualization. This maneuver helped clearly identify and visualize the stalk pedunculated case of the pyogenic granuloma. Continuous irrigation with normal saline and betadine was maintained throughout the procedure to prevent thermal damage and maintain a clear surgical field. Once the stalk was clearly visualized, the laser unit was activated. Controlled laser energy was applied at the base of the stalk to excise the lesion. The lesion was removed completely using gentle sweeping movements of the laser tip. The surgical site was inspected for any residual tissue and hemostasis was achieved due to the coagulative effect of the laser. Finally, a gauze piece soaked in povidone, iodine, betadine and saline was placed over the surgical site. Following post-operative care instructions were given to the patient. The patient was advised to avoid hot and spicy foods for 24 hours and to chew on the contralateral side. Topical application of vitamin E was prescribed 3 times daily for 5 days to promote healing. The patient was also prescribed topical metronidazole gels, metroheads to be applied alternatively 3 times daily for 5 days. Chlorhexidine mouthwash diluted with water was advised 3 times daily to maintain oral hygiene. Tablet diclomol SP was prescribed to be taken as needed SOS for pain management. These are the pre-op, immediate post-op and 7 days post-op pictures of the patient. On histopathological examination, H&E stain section showed parakeratinized stratified squamous epithelium with short red effects. The underlying fibroconnective tissue shows multiple enlarged capillaries filled with RBCs, dense collagen fibrous bundles with mild chronic inflammatory infiltrate cells. Thus, the diagnosis of pyogenic granuloma was made. Now moving on to the discussion part. Oral pyogenic granuloma is a common benign and reactive vascular lesion that frequently appears in the oral cavity, often on the gingiva. It presents as an erythematous red, often pedunculated, stalk-like or sessile flat-faced nodule, highly vascularized. It is prone to bleeding upon minor irritation. Common causes include chronic irritation, trauma, and hormonal fluctuations. It can occur at any age, but it is most common in young adults and children. Pregnant women have an increased incidence due to hormonal influences, leading to the term pregnancy tumor when it occurs on gingiva. Slight female prediction is noted in oral lesions. Cutaneous lesions are more evenly distributed. Pathophysiology: overexpression of endogenic factors like VEGF, vascular endothelial growth factor, stimulates lobular capillary proliferation. The region is characterized by a rapid growth phase followed by a mature, stable capillary network. Now, this picture clearly depicts why we use laser for excision, as laser vaporizes coagulate dysplastic epithelium or altered mutated fibroblasts. The coagulated and charred tissue provides protective dressing, seals vessels, and sterilizes the field, which results in less reoccurrence and increases the elasticity. Whereas the conventional excision method causes significant bleeding, post-operative complications, extended recovery, and reoccurrence potential is also is high. Diode lasers has targeted wavelengths, it is precise and bloodless, antimicrobial, it leads to faster recovery, and it is minimally invasive. This review supports diode laser as a practical alternative to scalpel-based surgery, particularly for highly vascularized pyogenic granuloma lesions where bleeding can compromise field visibility and comfort. Diode-assisted surgical excision provides a stress-free environment with a more comfortable experience for both the clinician and patient. Thus, it should be considered as a practical alternative to the traditional surgical technique. This article states that diode laser can be used as a safe and efficient technique for the treatment of intraoral pyogenic granuloma that minimizes reoccurrence and increases post-operative comfort and healing. This article states that laser surgery provides advantages such as better hemostasis, reduced post-operative pain, improved surgical field conditions compared with conventional scalpel techniques. This article states that the thermal action of laser irradiation can disinfect the surgical wound and significantly reduce the bacterial load at the surgical site, thereby providing a relatively sterile surgical field. These are the other inflammatory hyperplasia cases treated in our department. First case is of a 26-year-old female with a cheek complaint of painless swelling on the right cheek mucosa for last 2 months, history of discomfort, history of chronic cheek biting, no previous history of surgery or any other systemic disease. On examination, a single smooth surface, pink round sessile nodule measuring around 1.3 cm in diameter. Based on the clinical and examination and investigation, it was diagnosed with irritational fibroma. This is the second case, a 55-year-old female with a cheek complaint of swelling on the gums for the past 6 months, history of occasional bleeding but no pain, history of surgery 2 years ago using conventional methods, no history of systemic disease. On examination, a single smooth surface, pink to red, round nodular mass, around 1.5 cm in diameter, located on the gingiva in the region of teeth 1, 2, 1, 3 and 1, 4. Based on the clinical examination and investigation, it was diagnosed with pyogenic granuloma. Third case, a 50-year-old female with a cheek complaint of a swelling on the gums for the past 3 months, history of discomfort but no pain, history of previous surgery on the same mass 1 year ago using conventional methods, no history of systemic diseases. On examination, a single smooth surface, pink to red round nodule around 1.6 cm in diameter, located on the edentulous region of teeth 1.5 and 1.6. Based on the clinical examination and investigation, maturing pyogenic granuloma. These are the other gingival masses treated by laser in our department. So the take-home message can be elimination of pathological factors such as calculus, plaque or sharp teeth is essential to prevent reoccurrence of the lesion. Elimination of the causative factors before excision may result in partial regression or debulking of the lesion. Laser excision is preferred as it provides a dry surgical field and causes charring, carbonization of residual abnormal cells, which may help reduce reoccurrence. Thank you.